Cigarettes have been a part of our lives and history for a long time. Therefore, like anything else that surrounds us, they have found a reflection in meaning and art. Moreover, the dependency is mutual, as the way they were portrayed through artistic mediums also had an influence on how and by who they were used in everyday life. The biggest step in the portrayal of tobacco, after Mayans and their use of tobacco in spiritual rituals, came in the 17th century in the Dutch Republic. Cigarettes then were considered a novelty and were heavily associated with deviance, except for when they were used for medical reasons. They were a symbol of the poor, since they began their appearance as re-rolled remainings of cigars smoked by the rich and picked up by those less fortunate. Cigarettes were seen as a vice of the poor trying to escape their reality of their pitiful lives. The association with this sphere of society was very strong, and once established, the portrayal of tobacco was also used as a comedic prop in the paintings. It was seen as funny and surreal to see a woman smoke. It was also used to underline in a comedic way misery of the lower classes. However, even in the comedic setting, it was a warning, as one of the artists from that period said, capturing the thought of the society. Smoking will lead to punishment, poverty, and beggary. The switch in the portrayal of smoking to a one that is somewhat more similar to what we know happened due to the interference of the Dutch government itself. As import of tobacco boosted their economic situation, it was in their interest to keep the number of people smoking as high as possible. After some time, the government has managed to morph the way people saw and portrayed cigarettes. From that point on, cigarettes were seen more as a symbol for mundane, regular life. However, classes remained divided, as rich people smoked cigars and poor people smoked cigarettes rolled in newspapers. An art piece that reflects the division of classes portrayed via smoke is this lithograph by Theophile Steinem. We can see a richly clothed man standing tall while he lights up with his cigar, a cigarette of a man with a loose collar and poor posture, a member of a lower class. After a break in popularity, in the late 18th and 19th century, cigarettes gained in meaning, having possibly the most influential turn in their history. Cigarettes were once again seen as deviant, and because of that, cigarette became a symbol for the bohemian intellectualism. Numerous paintings portrayed men smoking, lost in thought. Cigarette in the hands of an intellectual was a weapon and a cry against the conservative values of society of that time. Conservatives thought smoking and drinking were habits that would result in the decay of the society, which of they feared greatly. Moreover, actual doctors linked cigarettes as a cause for mental illnesses. Munch understood that new current deeply and personally, and created perhaps one of the most famous paintings involving a cigarette, Self-Portrait with a Lit Cigarette. With it, he communicates that as a bohemian intellectual, he embraces his deviancy. Much like his most famous painting, Scream, he explores his own dark psyche and projects his inner feelings and mental state onto a canvas. Munch and the whole current believed in an unbreakable and undeniable connection between art, genius, and madness. In his painting, he portrays himself aware of his madness, genius, and the critic against himself, and deals with them head-on. Without a doubt, this is the point in time where cigarettes started to gain the reputation as cool and rebellious. It wasn't until pop art when the first art pieces started condoning smoking for health reasons. For pop artists, cigarettes were a perfect symbol of giving in to the thoughtless consumerism, masses ruled by addiction and lacking the willpower to fight the system. A series of works by Heinz Reinhardt embodied that thought. The works consist of big matches, half of them ripped out of the package. The matches symbolize soldiers brainwashed to giving away their most precious possession, life, for a country in which people, who they are told should be grateful for the freedom and their sacrifice, choose to kill themselves with cigarettes. In modern art, artists often go back to Munch. Cigarettes portray the inner turmoil of the artist, their awareness of their own self-destruction, weaknesses and illnesses, and their inability to escape from them without escaping from their life as an artist. In her artwork called Lungs, Jack Lehner collected boxes of cigarettes she smoked throughout a 3-year period and presented it to the audience, admitting her addiction. As motion picture came along, cigarettes became sometimes very distinctive parts of characters on the screen. Smoking portrayed in movies is never accidental. At the beginning of the cinema, smoking became equal to manliness. You can see Humphrey Bogart in The Maltese Falcon rolling his own cigarette, smoking midst conversation, seeming nonchalant at the same time taking over control of the dialogue and the scene. Toothpicks in movies also had their roots in tobacco addiction, as they were used in everyday life to help people quit smoking. They founded their reflection on the silver screen to emphasize on the edge, agitated and intense characters. In the contemporary cinema, cigarettes are charged with a variety of meanings depending on the character. Many producers and directors in today's cinema state that they would never make a protagonist smoke, and that smoking is reserved for the antagonists of the movies. And regarding Henry, Harrison Ford's vicious character gets shot in the head as a consequence of walking into a store at the wrong time just so he can buy himself a box of cigarettes. After his rebirth as a nice guy, he never reaches for a cigarette again. Although the stance on cigarettes was affected by political correctness, it is still used in cinema. Most often, cigarette is seen as rebellion, recklessness. From teenagers smoking in an alley and escaping from the police, to Lise and Thelma lighting up together celebrating the start of their new life path as outlaws. Cigarettes flout the authority. In the movie Fight Club, we as an audience are introduced to the character of Marla, smoking a cigarette during a group support meeting for cancer. The scene extracts the essence of the character from the very beginning of the movie. She acts to toy with the idea of death and she remolds it over to make herself feel truly alive. Robert De Niro performance of a psychopath in the movie Cape Fear would seem incomplete without a cigarette. Each inhale seems to be a proof of his evilness and, most importantly, sadism. In Primal Fear, Laura Linney smokes in very many scenes. On the surface, her character seems to be decisive, confident and strong. However, the action of smoking portrayed by her is always neurotic, filled with stress and doubt. Thanks to the action, we see deeper into the character. Nowadays, movies that seem to glamorize or even portray smoking face a lot of criticism, and many think that it should be a thing of the past. However, as encouraging smoking is negative, cigarettes still remain a subtle and omnipresent metaphor for a great number of characteristics. A cigarette between the fingers of a character seems to underline whatever it is that the actor is trying to portray, be it self-destruction, desperation, neuroticism, masculinity, or hopelessness.